everybody, and welcome back to Unmasking the Trans Movement with John Mueller. I'm your host, Brad Wilder. Today on the show, John brings with him part 2, and none other than Pierre Barns, a family man, activist who really is there for parental rights and the anti-SOGI movement as we continue to fight here in Canada to save our children, to save women in general, and to get this nonsense out of our school and away from our kids. There's a lot going on in part 1. If you missed it, please go back and take a quick look. There's a lot to get to. With that, let's bring in John Mueller and Pierre Barns. Thank you very much to both of you for being here for part 2, guys. Thank you very much for sticking around. A lot to come in this part 2. We're going to connect some dots, John. Tell us more.
Brad, thank you. And Pierre, thank you for being here. You're not only a wealth of knowledge, you're our resident expert on so many issues pertaining to what's called SOGI Sex Ed. That's sexual orientation and gender identity. That is the trans movement, deviant sex ed that's being pushed into schools, putting very sexually explicit, sexually deviant material in front of kids, whether their parents know it or not, and whether the parents like it or not. You were a parent that early on, Pierre, began to speak out, and then you also saw what was going on with the surgeries on very gender confused and emotionally troubled kids. And so we're going to show some of the material that is on your site. Pierre, I'm very excited to know that we really are going to begin to collaborate even more closely because you have such important information on your site. So we're going to have you kind of take over the screen, but then we're ultimately, by the end of this program, we want people to really stay tuned and pay attention, because what's going on in Canada is really, unfortunately, like the canary in the coal mine analogy, that it has far surpassed now what's going on in Europe, what's going on in Australia, New Zealand, in terms of doing an end run or a full-on assault against parental rights. And where this is heading is, and the newest thing that's happened in Canada, every country and every parent needs to take note, because it is not disconnected one from the other. We're having now the physician-assisted suicide of minors that are troubled, mentally ill. And it's happening in a country that has socialized medicine. There's more to this than people may realize. And I must say, a number of years ago, I called it. This is exactly, inevitably what happens, because two things are true. Whenever you start to push free medical, eventually somebody's got to pay the bill. So either prices go up or you have to eliminate consumers. But then if predators, and I believe it is true that predators are using the trans movement, the trans deception, to get their hands on kids, and what greater way of silencing the lambs and making sure that no perpetrators ever go to prison than you eventually help the kids into the permanent state of silence. So there's a lot of dots that we're going to connect. Pierre, show us, give us a brief tutorial once again of your site, or an updated view. You were here on the first visit. You really went in depth on how parents can, especially parents in Canada. Is it true for parents in the U.S. they can look into what's going on in schools as well?
Yeah, there is a link to libraries in school in the U.S. I can show you how it works.
So you've provided a resource on your site where parents can go in real time to find out what books are being pushed, and are they in their child's library at school?
Yes, I do. I provide the link to. You want me to show my website?
Do it. Yep. Take over the screen.
I want to make sure I got the good. Yeah, that's good screen. Okay. Okay, good. So here we go. So this is my website. So I simplify everything because I had way too much information before, and I just want people to be able to find what they're looking for. So basically, the book locations here, if you click on book locations, you're going to see all the school districts that I have already looked at in Canada, specifically on that one. So if you click, let's say, on the Abbotsford School District, That one's going to give you a PDF. That one is 907-page PDF, this is an export of all the books that I found in the Abbotsford School District, I believe probably years ago. Yeah, years ago. So when I do this, I did that with multiple districts. And if ever somebody wants to have a school district that they want me to look at, just send me an email, or you can find me on Twitter, and I can try to dig out that districts and find out what kind of books are in that districts. And you also have the Go Follett Here link, which is the school library software. Actually, this is the school library software that most schools use. Then here you have the United States and U.S. territory, Canada. You can look at, let's say, at your school districts, and then you can put the name of a school. Then it's going to bring you right to that school. Some schools going to require a login and password, but usually the parents have the logins and passwords. So let's say if I put gender, it's going to give me all the books related to genders into that districts. Yeah. Just want to take a look at that one because I too. Okay. Anyway, so that's the way you do it on the site. And I went a little bit fast, but people can slow it down if they want to see what I just did. So, and that link is on the book locations, and you got that link right on the top here. So so the books that, let's say if I click on the, that's one of the books that is in, I find this book in elementary school and middle schools in BC. Okay. That book use language like pussy, bitch, fuck. And there are teachers actually and activists that say that this language is completely fine for children because they can't find voice on the internet. So anyway, so one of the part that the book said actually is I asked him if his dick was bigger than his truck. I know you're a slut. You smell like cum. And then another place it said, nah. It's a fucking woman, fucking kids, fuck you, you little bitch. So this is in the books in school, you know. So and the problem is that some trustees are actually in favor of that kind of books. And okay, so look at this, and let's go with the one that are more. That one here. Let's talk about that. This is one of the worst actually books that.
And again, these are books that school kids are seeing.
Yes. And, you know, I don't care if this books here is in middle school and in secondary school. Some people are going to argue that this is okay in secondary school. I'm going to tell them that's not okay. They are still minors, and by the law, you cannot expose children to this kind of materials. And, you know, and my daughter, she's in secondary school, and she don't look for this stuff on the internet. You know what I mean? So I don't want the school to have this stuff in the school. You know that the school keeps saying, well, you know, children can find all this stuff in the internet. Well, school have to elevate themselves to better standard than the internet. And the school should protect children actually against all the content. Children, when they go on a computer in school, they don't have full access of the internet. You know, so the excuse of some teacher that, oh, you know, in real life, they are going to be exposed to this kind of stuff, to this kind of things, it's a complete unvalid argument. So anyway, so this is, even for us, I will say, even showing this to people, it's quite uncomfortable, actually. Those images are very ridiculous.
And again, and kids are being shown this without parental permission or awareness. And again, as we talked about in part one, the fact that you are showing what's in the books that are being presented to kids could potentially be reframed as SOGI hate or anti-SOGI, and therefore it may be criminal.
So I got to ask a question, because this, we say unmasking the trans movement, but this seems almost more gay and lesbian than it does to be trans. I'm not seeing men dressed up as women here or women dressed up as men. Am I reading it wrong? Am I finding that this isn't just about the trans movement? This is now about so much more than that in terms of the gay revolution and the lesbian revolution. Is it fair to say, guys?
Yeah, I would say there is a lot of trans stuff. I mean, if you look at I'm just going to show you back that, because a lot of things on those books are actually related to queer theories and trans. There's not many stuff on these books that except, no, this is mainly the trans movement, I will say, because that's just the title here, genderqueer. But the other one, let's say, let's talk about it here. I'm going to show you.
And Brad, you're so correct. And Pierre, what you're sharing, really, without the sexualization of kids, the trans movement would fade back away.
Oh yeah, yeah. But look at this. My point is, you see, this is a females with a man with breasts, or a female with a penis. It's very hard to understand. You see this here? So this was the first book. So yeah. So
very racially diverse, I noticed too.
I know they very all for the diverse.
And how many races would object to that, such as the East Indian race, for example?
Yeah, they don't agree with this stuff. Oh my gosh, man!
Exactly right. So
let's take a look at someone's at a book that actually is pushing gender. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay, that one doesn't. Wait a minute. I thought the link doesn't work properly.
Pierre, what a resource you've provided for parents, so they can go in and see these different books and see if they're in the libraries.
And that one here, the book Rick here, is all over elementary school, right? So that one is the stories of Rick. Rick, I believe, is a boy that wants to be a girl or something like that. Anyway, but the language on this book is completely ridiculous. I mean, you can actually crack a bottle on the guy's head and this shards embed in his skull. Check out the hottie. You know what I mean? Jeff called girls hottie. He made it sound like they were sexy pancake. This is an elementary school.
We need a list of all the authors, Pierre. You need to create the list of every single author, and let's start exposing every single author. Yeah. Let's make them famous.
There we go. So I got all the books, all the list here on this site, and so you got even the book is gay here. That that one is actually against the gay, because it's perhaps the most important skill you will master as a gay or bi man is the timeless classic, the end job. You know what I mean? So in order to be a good gay, you have to give good end job. That's basically what they are teaching children. Could you imagine how ridiculous this is? It's a complete nonsense. So anyway, so that's the parts of the books. If people wants to go to see the books and look for themselves, they can do this. I got a book review video here. That is pretty new. I put Emily Duggan. I don't know if you heard about this. I believe she's the founder of Moms Against the Norm in BC, and she do a very nice book review for those who wish to take a look at her describing the books and that are in school. So I put this there, and so I got. If you go on important links here. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's some people here. And so here you can see the bill C4, actually the bill that we were talking about in French and in English. And wait a minute, I just want to try find the part that is actually
So C4 is the bill that brought in the notion, really codified, notion of conversion therapy, so anti-conversion therapy. So the premise is, so there was overlapping or manipulation of the language where that originally was for making sure that somebody wasn't brainwashed out of homosexuality. Now it's been used for if a kid believes they are born in the wrong body, for anybody to try to get them to rethink the possibility of that. Now is converting them out of that. They use very cult-like tactics. The cult grabs the kid, so to speak, pulls the kid into the cult, and then if a parent wants to try to get the kid out of the cult, then the cult can say that the parents are converting the child away.
There we go. That's exactly that. Look at this. A conversion, the definitions of the conversions therapy is to change a person's sexual orientations to heterosexual. Okay, change a person's gender identity to cisgender. Change a person's gender expressions to that it conforms to the sex assigned to the person at birth. Repress or reduce non-heterosexual attractions or sexual behaviors. Repress a person's non-cisgender gender identity. You understand where we're going with that, huh? Repress or reduce a person's gender expressions that does not conform to the sex assigned to the persons at birth. So what this means is that you cannot tell someone who is homosexual that he may be heterosexual, okay? Or you cannot repress homosexuality and say that, it's wrong. You cannot say it's a sin, let's say. The Bible is actually illegal according to that bill. Okay, but look, the certainty here. For greater certainty, this definition does not include a practice, treatment, or service that relate to the explorations or development of an integrated personal identity, such as a practice, treatment, or service that relate to a person's gender transitions, and that is not based on an assumption that a particular sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression is to be preferred over another. So basically, you cannot convert from homosexuals to heterosexuals, or from transgenders to heterosexual to cisgender. I use cisgender because it's in the law. Cisgender is a slur. We should not use that word, but I use in that case to explain this. So you cannot change someone who is a transgenders to a cisgenders, which means gender that is assigned. You cannot do this, but you can do the reverse, the opposite. You understand? According to the bill, you can change a kid who is cisgender to transgenders, but you cannot do the reverse. So conversions work the conversion therapy bill only work on one side, doesn't work on the other. So you are preventing the arms only on one side, but not on the other side. So this bill is actually promoting the mutilations of children and make the mutilations of children legal and completely fine, and even encourage, because now you have to affirm every children. Let's say if a child go to see the doctor, the doctor is forced to affirm the children's upper whatever identity the children is. So the doctor is forced actually to give drugs like puberty blockers and to go ahead with whatever gender is this bill is an evil bill, and this bill is the bill that Pierre Poilievre voted for. Never forgot that.
Well, there was a lot of politicians here in Canada who actually voted for that bill to happen. And obviously, my question would be, how did they miss everything that you as a parent have been able to figure out? That just blows my mind, shocks the hell out of me. And it's very disturbing that our politicians have got no clue as to what's really going on in our country.
Exactly. And the thing is, they were hugging each other over that bill. That was a celebration at the Parliament at this day. This is the first time you can see the liberals and the conservatives shaking hands and really hugging each other and smiling.
Like they've done something great, right? For the kids, they didn't do nothing great for anybody.
They were overjoyed by that. Overjoyed by passing a bill that will mutilate children. Could you imagine? This is all crazy our country has become. So that's why I don't trust Pierre Poilievre. It's very simple. I'm happy that he talked against puberty blockers. I'm happy about that because I'm happy about the result of of what he said. What it said influenced other people. I'm happy about this.
Even
but
giving back parental rights, right?
Yeah, but I do not trust the guy. I do not trust the guy at
I agree.
all. So it's just, if the guy was not smart enough to read that freaking bill. And the thing is, at that time, we had activists on the street talking about this
There's
bill.
still a lot of confusion there, Pierre. There's still a lot of confusion that Pierre Poilievre and other members of Parliament wouldn't have been able to decipher from looking at that bill or reading that bill. I don't think they would have questioned what you are questioning or what any other parent or even journalist out there that's questioned it by looking at it. It's really stressful to think that they overlook all of the proper answers to what this bill is meant to do and omit something that's just so, I guess, irrational for our humanity and even our Canadian citizens for the most part, our children.
Yes, exactly. And I think in the US, they passed a bill similar to that. I believe that was the California bill, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a couple of years ago. And I remember the American, at that time, they were kind of happy. Oh, this is a bill against conversions. I said, no, it's a bill for conversions.
That's right.
They say it's an anti-conversions therapy bill. No. It's a bill to convert, to change children, to mutilate children. So you see the name. Every time they say it's anti-racist. Something is anti-racist. No, it's not anti-racist. It's racist. Anti-racist is racist. It's
well, John, with all of this comes a lot of confusion for people moving forward. And I guess that's where, as the children are abused and harmed along the way, assisted death and suicide. That's kind of another one of those dots along the way here, isn't it, John?
Oh, yeah, Brad, this is where, and Pierre, thank you so much. If you don't mind, I'm going to, or maybe you have to, can you unshare your screen? Because
there we go.
We're going to connect some additional dots. As you so adeptly indicated, this is really ultimately an attack upon parental rights. And we want to help people see that there are a lot of special interests. So maybe I will start with this so that people have a context. And as a matter of fact, I will start with this. This is going to come, I'm going to show this chart. This comes from a video entitled that I put together on Understanding the Trans Movement. So you can find it. I'm now going to enlarge this. As a matter of fact, maybe I can do it from here without the video playing. Okay, so this is near the end. You can see it's about almost 40 minutes in. So I put together one time, just kind of brainstorming, what are the different, what I call dark special interests that are feeding off the carcasses of our kids. We could put right in the middle, we could put really a silhouette of a child here. And I don't believe there's a lot of coordination among every single one of these squares, but these are the different special interests. There's probably more, quite frankly, that have a vested interest in continuing or pushing this agenda. So in starting at the 12 o'clock mark, straight up, we have banks. Well, how do banks have a vested interest? Banks are going to loan loans to people, and there's been a push to allow people to put these surgeries and even the puberty blockers and other things on credit cards. So they have a vested interest. Big Pharma, that should go without saying. There's no other situation where you can have a customer for life, cradled to the grave, than if you start fooling around with the kid's endocrine system, puberty blockers, and then cross-sex or wrong-sex hormones, and then they need to maintain a false, really pseudo-self, meaning if a boy is born male, his XY chromosomes don't change. So if they stop taking these hormones, then the body will revert back. Just like if a young boy who ends up being castrated, they call it bottom surgery, and then has a surgical hole drilled into him as what they'll call a vagina, fake a neo-vagina. But the last time I checked, a woman doesn't have to keep her vagina open in terms of fearing that the body will close off her vagina. So these young men that are put through this, like Jazz Jennings of I Am Jazz, right? For the rest of his life, for the rest of Jazz's life, he's going to have to keep dilating this wound. It's a wound that the body is trying to close. So you can see big pharma, big medical, and how much, as we had Scott Nugent on the program a bit ago, Brad, it said that $70,000 for quote unquote bottom surgery. So there's big money to be made for hospitals and doctors. There's the plastic surgeons, of course. We see the medical clinics and services. And then this is where, and sorry for the little arrow, I wonder if I can move the, okay, I'll get that out of the way, thank you. Because in the video, that circle goes clockwise. But Pierre, we've been talking about, so I'll even go back further, get that out of the way. SOGI Sex Ed and Planned Parenthood go hand in hand, because now once these kids are influenced, unduly influenced, to start getting on these puberty blockers, we have Planned Parenthood that are handing these things out. This comes into play because Planned Parenthood's founder was Margaret Sanger, who was a eugenist in the U.S., and Ernst Rudin, who eventually started the eugenics program or was very influential for the Nazis in World War II, learned what he learned from Margaret Sanger in the U.S. So we could say that the U.S. helped influence the Nazis in doing eugenics. Well, Planned Parenthood is very much involved in this, and that is really, there's no other way to put it, looking to cull or kill off, right, those that are not fit. And so Planned Parenthood, we're going to see that they are in this, they are in here like a dirty shirt, so to speak. You then can see the other special interests. We've got Human Services down here in the dark purple at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. There's sales and marketing of trans products and services. Down here at 5:30, we have media and influences, TV and whatnot, corporations, right? You see the media sponsors and punitive measures. We're continuing now at social media. That should be self-evident. All these kids are unduly influenced by those. Here's our concerns as well. Pimps and human traffickers, they benefit from kids being sexualized from these books. And then, of course, Pornhub and the porn industry, because you sexualize these children, and of course, they're going to start looking for that online. We've already now talked about politicians. They get a lot of campaign contributions. This is a huge concern, right? How do you change a culture? How do you change a country? At 10 o'clock up there, social engineers, and then you have big foundations. All that to say, now I'm going to get out of this, and I'll go into, that has set the stage for now. Once you influence these kids, you see the different special interests that are in play. And I think I'll go to this one here. We're going to, do I have the right one? You know what? As I'm talking to you, let me make sure I've got the right one up. I'm going to try to multitask. There we go. So with these dark special interests, there are those that are more than happy to have our kids not only be sexualized, but to begin to chip away at parental rights. And ultimately, where are we going with this? If I am one of those dark special interests, let me see if I can get this out of the way. There we go. Inevitably, what you're going to find is they're going to play upon the pain of children. They're going to create, meaning those that are pushing this agenda have a vested interest in confusing children, confusing minors. You'll do that a number of different ways. You suggest or you unduly influence that they are not, that they may be born in the wrong body. So you're creating this confusion in kids. It's going after their intuition, which makes it difficult for them to reality test, while you're also, little by little, making sure that parents can't intervene in that process. What will happen is you are going to create distress within the kids. You're suggesting to them that they are not okay as they are, and you're going to introduce then material that will start to generate anxiety in a lot of different ways, including, are they okay in and of themselves? And you make them ripe for not being able to trust their intuition, and therefore now they are able to be exposed and set up to be groomed by predators. If you play upon a child's sense of self, they will become distressed, where we hear, well, as a matter of fact, I'll get out of this for just a moment and then I'll go back in. So if you create anxiety within a kid, then you can actually tell them or plant within them the seeds of increased concern and instability. And before you know it, you can even start to suggest to them, and a kid is going to experience this anyways, going through adolescence these days, an increased sense of depression and anxiety. So now you've started to generate mental health issues. And now we hear that parents are pressured to allow this quote unquote transition to go on, because it's better to have a dead son, a son that's alive, a live son, rather than a dead daughter. Okay, that's what's being pressured. That's how the pressure is being brought to bear against parents. So now the parents start to back off in one way or another, or are told not to mess with this process. Then the child gets sucked in. Now you're additionally confusing the child's sense of self. You've got them on the transition moving sidewalk eventually towards sterilization and sex change surgeries. And along the way, and here's my contention, our contention, the child is ripe for sexual grooming. Now you've created real issues, because now this child's a survivor. That's where you got a lot of the self-harm. A perpetrator wants to make sure that they are never busted. And if this is happening in a socialistic country or socialized medicine, you now have more and more kids that are using tax dollars, using medical dollars. Well, what better way to begin the process of eliminating the problem you created than to do what? To begin to allow for kids to opt in and opt out of life, opt in and opt out of whether or not they want to stick around. So we don't have to look any other place than, now here we go. We're going to look at...
Mental harm is dramatic, isn't it, John?
I'm sorry, say it again?
We talk about the physical for the last little while, the transitions, the surgeries, but realistically it's the mental that's going to be the most devastating to these kids. And that's where, we're able to see some of the suicide rate increasing here in Canada. And it's happening with these kind of children who are confused and broken.
There you go. So I predicted a couple of years ago, because it wasn't hard to see, that if you have a country that has socialized medicine, that means they're paying out for more users. So you'll have always a utilization review. Well, why are you encouraging people to seek access more and more, especially meaning kids? That means you're having a tidal wave of kids that are going to continue to draw upon the system. So from a government funding perspective, as well as, let's say kids have been perped on, you want to keep them quiet. So what's the perfect fit for both of those? What's the perfect answer? You then eventually allow them to just fade away. Now, how would you cause them to fade away? So anytime you see a country that has implemented euthanasia, inevitably what you're going to find is they continue to widen the bell-shaped curve, or they, cradle to the grave. So look at what has happened in the Netherlands. You see that they started to broaden the criteria, or they allowed for other populations. And eventually, what do you have in the Netherlands? Now it covers children of all ages from 0 to 12. What do we see in the trans movement? What do we hear? We hear this term floated, bodily autonomy. And so before we know it, it seems as though kids can make their own independent medical decisions. So eventually, what has happened in Canada? We've had a push for euthanasia. And what has now happened? We've had what's called dying with dignity, and look at the term mature minors.
Yeah.
So you're seeing bodily autonomy and the term mature minors. Isn't that interesting? If we ask these same people, are kids mature enough to smoke? No. Are they mature enough to drink? No. But okay, what do we mean by mature minors? Oh, whether or not they want to choose to die. So they start to expand these categories. So let's say I'm a sexual predator. I'm not, but let's say I've perped on a kid. What kind of behaviors will we see in a kid? You'll see potentially 9 red flag key clinical indicators, all of which now are reframed as gender-related issues that should concern people. One of those significant things will be self-injury. It'll be depression. It'll be anxiety. It'll be potentially hearing voices, call that dissociation. And now a child gets checked into, because it's getting worse and worse, because you're still keeping that kid on a pathway that makes them very susceptible to predation. And let's say somebody's perped on that kid. The kid now becomes depressed, and the child says, I don't want to live anymore. Well, if you can't begin to inquire of that child, where did this start? Because many child victims, I'm going to get out of this now, and we're going to play, though, what happened just recently within Canada. So look at what's happened with the Dutch. So it started with autism and intellectual disabilities, and eventually went to what? Now it's the same thing, right? For those that are mentally ill. Well, how do you define that? Depression. So eventually, the parents are then removed, because once a child is put into the hospital, let's say for depression, let's say they come home and say, Mom, I'm going to kill myself. So now a parent doesn't know what to do. A parent takes the child to the hospital. And Brad, you brought to my attention an audio TikTok, right out of TikTok. Yeah. And we're going to listen to this because this is real. This is not fabricated. And this recently happened within the past 6 months, probably.
That's right.
Brad, if I sense the timing of this. So yeah. Canadian parents, U.S. parents across Western Europe, please understand this is what could happen to you and your child.
I get on a Zoom call with Jamie, Sally, and a bunch of people. And Jamie told us last week that she was in a health food store to get some supplements like right by her place. She lives in Edmonton. And she said the owner kind of looked a little bit distraught. And she knows her, like because she's been there enough. And she goes, yeah, everything okay? You okay today? And she goes, oh, I'm sorry. I just had a really bad day. And she said, well, what's going on? She goes, I had a mother and a 10-year-old son come in today. And she goes, I could see that they were upset. And I could see the mother had been crying. And so I went up to her and said, hey, are you okay? And are you okay? And she told her what happened. So get this one. I'm going to change the thing. I'm going to run out of time. This girl was 13 years old. Her daughter was 13 years old, and she was sick, and they were having troubles figuring out what was wrong, and they finally discovered that she had cancer. So she had to go to the Stollery and stay there and start treatment. So the mom and the dad took her and got her all settled and everything, and then they were just going to run out for an hour and just get her some stuff. She needed some stuff. So they popped out, came back. Within that hour, the evil pieces of garbage, doctors and nurses at the Stollery convinced this 13-year-old daughter, this 13-year-old girl to kill herself with MAID. And she signed a paper saying she wanted MAID, and they killed her 2 days later. So this was the day before the mother had come in the day after her daughter had been murdered, and there was nothing they could do. They couldn't stop it because the little girl signed it. This was in Edmonton, freaking Alberta. Trudeau, there's a special place in hell for that man. I take that back. There's a special place in hell for that reptile because he's not human. He's completely devoid of a soul. It's sickening. My advice to all parents is to keep your kids the hell away from any hospital in this country. I mean, certainly in this province, but in this country, this is beyond comprehension. So, and I'll tell you something else. If you do, I mean, I wouldn't have left my kid. We've never left our kids alone in a hospital, but, whatever. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know the entire story, right? But it's sick. We had a friend over for dinner last night, and he was saying that he showed us an article from the CBC, and they actually posted an article saying that they are saving they're going to save like 125 million or some, like a massively huge number on healthcare every year with MAID. So we'll just kill everybody as opposed to, treating them. And they're treating, like they're killing anybody. It happens fast. Like if they make a decision, like I say, this little girl was killed in 2 days.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Extremely saddening, extremely concerning, distressful.
Yeah. And we all know that they are going after the...
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
True
after
story.
the most vulnerables. Yeah. I just want to, I got something I want to show you in regards to the children's they are going after. And I think John's going to recognize those images. I just want to show you something quickly here. So, you see all the scar here? So they are mutilating those children who already have mental issues. So you see all the scar? So that girl here was already mutilating herself. Then she got her breast cut. And this is in Canada, by the way. You see the scar? The scar, the scar, the scar. So they are going after the mentally ill. That's exactly what they are doing. And they will kill them with MAID. Like you just said. You see this here?
It's continual abuse from start to finish, you guys, and it just doesn't end. Once they're sucked into this, they're in it for life, and their life is short. It's a sad scenario.
Brad, you can see how that original chart of the different special interests, dark special interests, are going, are all of those different special interests communicating with one another? I probably doubt it, but you can see how each one has a vested interest, or at least a number of them do, in allowing the assisted suicide. And why aren't people marching in the streets?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because powers that be know that, they can solve a lot of problems if they just have a 12-year-old who is depressed. I mean, how susceptible to suggestions and undue influence are 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And to think that physicians now and medical staff are able to get her to sign, and she's in the hospital, parent comes back to pick her up, and the child's dead.
Yeah, that is crazy, man. Those doctors should be put in jail right away for doing that kind of stuff. They are using the major minorities for mutilating children as well, right? The same principle they are using for trans ideology, they are using it now to kill our children in Canada. The major minors concept. And
it's not too far-fetched, and I'll just add this, I know we're getting close to time, is not too far-fetched based upon my work with sex offenders. Nobody's arrested for being a part of a child trafficking ring, meaning they get arrested for that, but the charges aren't. You have to go in and read what was the perpetrator involved in, and you can put the pieces together.
Yeah.
It is not far-fetched to believe that you could have perpetrators, because I had doctors in my sex offender treatment groups that were sexually abusing kids in hospitals or as they were staying overnight. These perpetrators look for like-minded evil individuals, and they perpetrate as groups. And they try to have small little cadres of these perps so that the child never leaves their sight, so to speak. They're not out of their sphere of influence. So you can have perpetrators that will have, so let's say a stepfather works as a security guard to a mortuary. So he has access to bodies and body parts, by the way, things I've heard, all sorts of things. Well, they have a church that has a pastor who's actually pastor by day, maybe a Satanist by night. It's really strange, but perpetrator by night. So he's a pretend pastor or a youth pastor. So now we have access to kids. So when the child goes to church, guess what church the perpetrator parent is taking him to where there's a perp. At the school, the 5th grade school teacher was a perp. So when the child goes to school, never out of eyesight. Then when they have to go to the dentist, we've got a perpetrator who's a dentist. They handpicked the dentist. How about the doctor? Same thing. So the child never is out of eyesight or earshot of one of these perpetrators. So how convenient would it be to have a perpetrator that is a doctor, that when the child starts to get of a certain age, a perpetrator is going to take the child who's now depressed to which hospital or which doctor, or the hospital that the doctor has either works there or can do rounds there. And so before you know it, as far as child trafficking, it's the silencing of the lambs. So whether it's a child that either knows too much and risk of speaking, or just in terms of now cutting costs, as that woman said in the video. Oh, Pierre, I'm sorry, you muted yourself. Sorry, Pierre.
I say it's a satanic death cult. Those people who are running these things and putting those laws in place and killing children or mutilating children, they're satanic. They're part of the death cult. And, and I think there will be no reparations in our country until some of them are put in jail. I don't think anyone will ever trust the political systems until some of them end up in jail for having mutilating and killing our children.
Look, you know what happens to those kind of people in jail? You know what happens to them when they get to jail? How about we just take care of business, do the right thing? Let's bring back the death penalty, because these individuals deserve everything that they're trying to do to our children. Tenfold.
Yeah, this is... Yeah, what happened? I personally think that what we are doing to our children now, it's even worse than all the horrors that happened during World War II.
100%.
Because now it seems that the entire population seems to be okay with that. It seems that there is no remorse about what's going on. That it's perfectly fine to mutilate children, right? And children, they cannot even go out of it because it is accepted in the society. So the society has been groomed to believe that it's perfectly fine to mutilate them. The victims of this abuse are such in bad situations because no one are there to help them. So in regards to the protest, I didn't like protests before, but one thing I realized with protest over time, it give voice to the victims, because sometimes you can have victims in a car that see us protesting against the trans movement and against SOGIs and against all this stuff, and it gives them hope. And sometimes they come and see us. Sometimes they are masked, right? They put the mask. They're not necessarily, the people who put the mask are not necessarily all bad people. Sometimes they try to hide from the abuser. They just come to talk to us. So this very interesting that happened in protest. There is parents that come that told us these stories about what they did to their children, and they told us if I didn't see this protest there, I will not know that people are fighting against this thing. So that's why we try to spread all across BCs, because it's very important to raise a campaigns to give voice to those victims, to tell them, listen, there are people out there that are here to help you, and to make them realize that they are abused. It's crazy. This kind of abuse is crazy because it's the worst grooming ever, man. It's hard to get out of it because even those who have been abused, they feel so guilty about themselves because everyone seems to think that everything is normal about what happened to them. There's nothing normal in cutting the breast of little girl. There's nothing normal in giving puberty blockers to children. Those children are abused by the state. So in regards to the major minors, there is one person responsible for the decisions of making the major minors major minors actually is the physicians. So people tend to forget that is that in order to be a major minors, you need the healthcare the healthcare providers have to. Wait a minute, I got this. Have to have to think that the child has got the necessary knowledge to make consent. Okay, so there is one adult that decide if the children is a major minors, and that adult is responsible of all the crime that happened to that children after. So let's never forget the physicians who said to that children, you are a major minors, because that person is responsible for the crime. And I think we have to find out who are those people, those physicians who are telling a child that they can consent to puberty blockers or that they can consent to MAID. Could you imagine? Who did that? Who is the physicians who told the daughters of that woman that she was mature enough? We have to find out who's the physicians. And she have to go after him.
The other place you'll hear the term mature minor is from sex offenders. Oh. Well, she was very mature for her age. So we need to worry whenever we start hearing from adults that kids are mature.
Oh my gosh, I never make the connections. Well, you're right. Yeah, but that makes sense, mate. Yeah. Gosh. This is, I always said this is a pedo-Marxist agenda. And that's why they're going to fail. That's why those Marxists are going to fail. Because we are being infiltrated by Marxists, this is clear. But the Marxists has been infiltrated by a bunch of freaking perv and pedos. And that's why they are going to fail. Because those people has no control over the pulsions. They're just nuts and crazy, and they are doing very sick things, and they just wake up people to the agenda, to the Marxist agenda. Because I don't think that without all those freaking weirdos, I think maybe the Marxist agenda would have succeeded. But they went too far because they attack our children. I think that's what's going to be the fail. You know, I always say that the Achilles heel of the Marxists in our country are the fact that they went after is the fact that they went after our children. That was a big mistake. To mutilate children and to kill children. And when people realize what's going on, they wake up and they fight back, and we will.
Let's just hope it's not too late. Let's hope it's not too late.
But the Trudeau government is falling, especially with the Emergency Act things that they were considered unlawful. The Trudeau government is falling, and hopefully it's gonna fall very soon. I think we need another trucker convoy. I'm probably gonna get arrested just for saying that, but it's just, well, we need this. And there is the other movement that are coming up too, very big movement that are coming up to put a stop to this insanity.
Well, everybody can find some of those details on your website at exposingsogi123.com. All the information is there. I want to thank both of you for being here today. John, any last comments before we wrap things up?
I'm just appreciative for good parents like Pierre. He not only is a wealth of knowledge, but at heart, he's a husband and he's a dad. And we need to have parents step up and understand that there are people that are vying for the hearts of our kids. And we need to, Brad, you're a dad and I'm a dad. Right? It's going to take us stepping up and saying enough is enough.
That's correct. And it's going to take an army of us all too. So there's no time for bickering and fighting or wavering on any of the issues that present ourselves with. We all have to kind of rise up and know the difference between right and wrong together. With that, we're going to wrap things up here today. Thank you, John. Thank you for Pierre for being here. Wish you both continued success as we continue this fight against this movement called the trans movement. We're unmasking it and we'll continue to unmask it. You cannot stop us. You cannot take us down. We will be right back the next day with more material that is here for educational purposes. This isn't about anger. This isn't about hate. We know that there are kids out there that do need the transition that they need, but it's not for every child. It's not to be that every child needs to be pushed into this ideology and this movement. With that, thank you very much for watching. Remember, you can find us on BitChute as well as Rumble and on YouTube. I'm Brad Wilder. Till next time, for John Euler and Pierre Barns, we'll see you next time.